In topic 4 of set theory, we just kind of extend it a little bit further and use the ideas of taking a union, taking intersections, and taking complements a little bit further. And we have some larger Venn diagrams to possibly drawn here. So maybe different scenarios. But when we start getting past the Venn diagram scenario where there was just two intersecting sets inside of a universe, we can kind of extend that out where there perhaps is up to three fully intersecting sets within a universe where there's a few more sections to kind of work through. In a smaller diagram, I would say that there are only four sections to really kind of work through, a couple subtractions, perhaps, just trying to get those totals. But as we start getting into three Venn diagrams, we are up to eight sections that play towards with one another. And this will be very, very important for us to absolutely start in the middle, slowly work your way out, and leave some of those exterior pieces of information to the very end would be kind of a logical way through this. And in this example that I want to go through here, I mean, we're really only working with 100%. I mean, in this kind of diagram, that's really what 100% is our maximum. And I mean, that means if you look at a lot of these percentages, there's not really going to be a lot that stay the same. A lot of these are overlapping. There's a lot of percentages that are occurring in multiple regions, and there's a whole lot of subtracting. But we're being nice, and we have given you the crucial piece of information here, which is that 12% used all three forms of communication. That is going to be our middle. It's kind of like the keystone of this kind of a situation. If we didn't give you the middle, it is quite an intense process to try to work backwards towards it when there's a huge mixture of percentages like this. But I don't think we're going to be very mean, and we're going to make you work inside out. But that is kind of a critical one to kind of isolate and to get in. It's probably the only percentage that isn't really going to get totally maneuvered or totally modified given some of the wordings they're using up here. So I do want to be a little bit careful. Let me highlight one of these here. Let's talk about texting and using social networking. It says that 19% of people did that. And you might immediately kind of think, or kind of maybe get misled, that that's this region, where texting and social media intersect, and you might kind of be tempted to just put 19 there. It says 19% texted and did social media. Anytime you see this word "and" in logic, that's our intersection. That's the overlap section, and I mean that might seem reasonable. However, let me kind of bring this aside here. It said 19% texted and used social media. Now, what they're trying to kind of indicate here, and I'm going to have to draw this out a little bit again. So I'm not worried about cell phone usage at all. I mean, that there's no mention. It didn't say to get rid of C. It didn't exclude anything. And so I really am just kind of focused on where does T and S intersect. And there are those regions. And I mean, one of the regions is definitely where all three intersected, but it's definitely where social media intersected with texting. And for that reason, we have to kind of use this 19 percentage as what this real intersection kind of works with. And this is where we, have the fundamental rule of don't count percentages twice. We just have to be a little bit more careful, because if we're already locked in to these 12 percentages, we don't have 19 left. Where we already have 12 of that intersection down on paper. And so as I take my 19 and subtract the 12 that I've already accounted for, I would be able to say place in the correct breakdown, because this is the intersection of T and S, this region, which has now been broken into two separate regions, but it is technically the separation or the intersection of T and S. And it does add up to 19. I mean, we have maintained the 19, but we have a little bit of subtractions to kind of work with here. And so I'll just update that this needs to be 7 to create my 19. And for every single one of these percentages up here, I'm going to have to kind of do that same kind of dance, like the claim that 18% called on a cell phone and used social networking. That is talking about social cell phone and social networking. It's talking about this entire region. Oh, it's hard to see. Let me just do that again. This entire region, which again uses the 12. And as I go, take my 18 and subtract 12, it does leave only 6 that's left. Here was my 19. It's messy. Messy. Let's just fix that. There was my 19. There's my 18. And let's just write that in. 19 minus 12. There we go. And I'm on my way. Let's do the next one. Let me do purple. Or let's find more of a purple. 56 called on a cell phone and texted. And I think that is going to be this region. Let me just kind of figure this one out here. And that like that. Cell phone and texted. And as I use my subtraction here, I can't, it's already including the 12. And so my 56 minus the 12 leaves me with 44. And I've worked out the center and some of all of these intersections. And now I can start worrying about some of these outside statements. And again, we use the same exact logic. When they say, for example, that we have 66% of people calling on a cell phone, that again does not allow us to fit 66, because as you can see, I've broken my 100% pretty quickly now. 66% calling on a cell phone is talking about the entire circle called cell phone, which already includes 3 separate percentages. And as I kind of break this down, it says 66 minus the 44, minus the 12, minus the 6 that I've already accounted for. That leaves me with 22, 10. Yeah, that's only 4% of people only called on a cell phone. Remember, it doesn't say to exclude anything here. It's not saying only used a cell phone, did not use other things. It is just a really literal statement of 66. And I did, and if you add them up, right, I'm pretty sure I did make the C set add up to 66. And yes, I'm happy with that. Texting, 76% texted. A lot of those percentages, again, are already there. And so 76 minus the 44 minus the 12 and minus the 7 is going to leave me with 32, 20, and 13% only texted. And I'm good there. And then my last one, 34% used social networking. And I will make sure that social networking as a whole adds up to 34. So as I take my 34 minus 6 minus 12 minus the 7, leaves me with 22, 14, no, 28, 16, 9. There's only 9 left. Now, we just do want to be a little bit careful here. I feel like I'm missing a number. That sneaky little outside number. The people who did not do anything, they did not make a statement, but that does not mean that there's no number on the outside. I will just kind of double check. So far, I have, starting in the middle, I found out there was 12, then 44, then 6, then 7, then 4, then 13, and then 9. And as I go to add up these numbers, let me just grab a calculator so I don't make a mistake. These add up to 95. And so I was right to be suspicious, because to make my universe, there must be 5% of people who did not use a cell phone, who did not text, and they did not use social media over the previous week. And we could ask any amount of questions about this diagram. We could ask about intersections, we could ask about unions, we could ask about complements. And, some of our favorite questions will involve language like, how many people used at least one device? And we kind of start mixing in some of this really, really tricky language with like at least one device. I mean, in notation, this would be also known as the number of people who use a cell phone or social networked or texted. Would be kind of comparable to saying at least one device. In terms of shading, what I would be asking for here, the people that used at least one device means that I would be happy with people who use just one or two or basically all three. And so when they say things like at least, they're kind of opening it up to a huge union of these sets, saying, hey, I want to know all the people that used stuff, that used something. And that did come out to 95. But we can ask pretty sneaky questions about these really, really big diagrams. But you do have to build it very carefully. The language of those sentences is really critical. I mean, as I just go look around some of these other examples, some of these other triples, they start throwing in the word or. That makes it that's another notch up. They start saying things like only. I mean, as I probably find another one here. Oh, they start saying but not, but not, which is the same thing as only. And they can really kind of really be very, very specific, but you really do want to kind of read carefully some of those descriptions here. So good luck.